وقالت اليهود يد الله مغلولة غلت أيديهم ولعنوا بما قالوا بل يداه مبسوطتان ينفق كيف يشاء وليزيدن كثيرا منهم ما أنزل إليك من ربك طغيانا وكفرا وألقينا بينهم العداوة والبغضاء إلى يوم القيامة كلما أوقدوا نارا للحرب أطفأها الله ويسعون في الأرض فسادا والله لا يحب المفسدين ولو أن أهل الكتاب آمنوا واتقوا لكفرنا عنهم سيئاتهم ولأدخلناهم جنات النعيم ولو أنهم أقاموا التوراة والإنجيل وما أنزل إليهم من ربهم لأكلوا من فوقهم ومن تحت أرجلهم منهم أمة مقتصدة وكثير منهم ساء ما يعملون صدق الله العظيم. When a person or when an individual or a community, sometimes when a person becomes so engrossed in something and so inside it, then what he says and what he does and what he acts, he doesn't even know what's coming out of his mouth. Sometimes a person is in such a situation, and if a person is so involved in something at a point, then he himself says things which are just nothing less than absurd. So in one hadith of Rasulullah also, حُبُّكَ الشَّيْء يُعْمِي وَيُصِمْ, that a person's love for certain things makes him blind and it makes him deaf. And it's so blatant in front of a person, but because he's so attached to it, his hub and his love for it is so much so that it makes him blind. For example, someone has a deep love for wealth, more and more and more. He wants to amass more and more and more. So he doesn't even see that what's happening to his family at home. He will say, I'm earning, but at a point it becomes just for the sake of earning. He hasn't seen his kids for so many days. He hasn't taken care of himself, his own health. Is he eating? Is he not eating? Is he asleep? None of that. He's just so angry. Yu'mi. Makes him completely blind. And he doesn't even look what I'm doing. Is it right? Is it wrong? The person in front of me, how am I dealing with him? Is it okay what I'm doing? Yuslim. It makes him completely deaf. Someone can give him good advice also to look at yourself. This is what your situation you're in. It's hurting you. But none of that matters. Because he's so much into it. Similarly, when a person becomes very arrogant, and a person stops caring about what others say, and their level of deviance becomes so much so, because they have political gains and other reasons for why they are doing whatever they're doing, then they contradict themselves and start saying things which, even if they were to take a step back and think about it, they would also question that, what did I just say right now? So over here, at the time of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to Medina Munawwara, and when he gave da'wah to, there were mushrikun there, the Yahud there as well. So the Yahud, they were extremely envious, and they had hasad, that why does the last messenger come from the Arab and not from amongst us? So at any cost, they did not want to believe in general, most of them. Some did believe, we know some famous Sahaba from amongst them that believed, but otherwise, the vast majority did not believe. And as a result, what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taqween, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a situation upon them that they found decrease in their sustenance and in their rizq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, if their yield of crops, for example, was lesser, their profits became lesser. And they noticed this. So they started saying two things. One, that look, from the time this messengers, Muhammad has come, look, this is what has happened to us. And the second thing they said, and this has to do with the love and a level a person reaches, or rather stoops to, that he starts saying things like this. That someone who believes in Allah, this is what they say. They say, Yadullahi maghlula. They say that the hands of Allah are tied now. That He does not spend. That He is bakhil, that He is cheap. Na'udhu billah. That's one tafsir. The other tafsir is to say that the ni'am have run out by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That by the treasure, our aqidah is the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are endless. Right? So he's saying that it's diminishing. The reserves, the economy is down. Yadullahi maghlula. This is what they say. Yadullahi maghlula. This is what I would say. That, these are believers in Allah, right? They're not their issue was with the last messenger, if anything. But when you stoop so low at a level, then you start saying things which, even by your own standard, makes no sense. Even by your own standard, it's wrong. So, Yadullahi maghlula. غُلَّتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ. The Quran al-Kareem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, غُلَّتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ. There's two tafsir. One is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is cursing them. غُلَّتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ. May your hands be tied. So two things. One is that through this dua of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or not dua of Allah ta'ala, through this curse of Allah ta'ala, their takwina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put miserliness amongst them. That they won't spend openly and as much as the Muslimun and believers spend. غُلَّتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ. May their hands be tied. And this is a bad quality. It's not to say that it's good that a person keeps and hoards all the money by it, right? Nobody likes that. Nobody likes people who just hoard. That's why it's important that the Muslim community, when we are in an area, in a place, then we should take care of those around us. Right? We take care of those that are around us. Why? So that people don't think that these are people who just live off of others. That should never happen. That Muslims be branded as leeches. That you just come to an area, or come to a country, come to a place, and you try to see however much you can get for free. But rather, we should be contributors. We contribute to community. Because nobody likes people who just come, they take things, and they go away. Or they just sit there and they're just, as you say, freeload out for people. Rasulullah ﷺ said, الْيَدُ الْعُلْيَا خَيْرٌ مِنَ الْيَدِ السُّفْلَى. The giving hand is better than the receiving hand. Now, if a person needs, he obviously receives. That's besides the point. But what should be our endeavor? Not how much we can juice the society, how much you can juice the system. Rather, how can we contribute? The more you give, the better. غُلَّتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَلُعِنُوا بِمَا قَالُوا. And may they be cursed because of what they said. بَلْ يَدَاهُ مَبْسُوطَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands are what? The loss you felt it, but not everyone else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave so much of this to others. But the fact of the matter is, يُنْفِقُ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ. The idea, or the issue isn't about how much is in the khazain and the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's limitless. Numerically, that's what for us, numbers. بَلْ يَدَاهُ مَبْسُوطَةً يُنْفِقُ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ. Allah ta'ala spends as He wishes. So sometimes what you should have understood through this decrease is that look, your wealth is being decreased, your ni'mah are being decreased. This is to jolt you, so that you wake up, so you understand the reality that not only will this be a loss for you in the akhirah, it's also leading to a loss for you in this dunya. So Allah Ta'ala changes ahwal so that person realizes. يُنْفِقُ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ وَلَيَزِيدَنَّ كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا. So that's one aspect of it. The other is that the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he came, rather than you taking guidance from what he brought you, what did this do for you? مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ. Increase them, what has been revealed to you, that increased you in more transgression. The opposite is said for mu'minun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the sifa of the believers is وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. The verses of the Quran al-Kareem, every verse which is revealed, every verse that we read, then our iman increases, because upon each verse of Allah Ta'ala we bring iman. We believe in this verse, and we affirm what this verse is saying. So it increases the believer in his iman. The more ayat come, the more ahkam, the more commands of Allah Ta'ala he comes across, the more the Quran Kareem that he recites and he reads, all of this leads to his increase in his iman. But over here, the kafir, يَزِيدَنَّ كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا. The more verses come, the more it increases them in their طُغْيَان, in their deviance, in their transgression, and in their disbelief. And if a person wants to understand how is it possible the Quran Kareem leads to your طُغْيَان, for example, a person who is sick, then no matter how good the food is, at a certain point, depending on a person's sickness, it may actually increase his sickness. Right? And the food, there's nothing wrong with the food itself. It's good, wholesome food. But his sickness is such that he cannot even digest this right now. وَأَلْقَيْنَا بَيْنَهُمُ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. Another curse of Allah Ta'ala, وَأَلْقَيْنَا بَيْنَهُمْ, that we sent amongst them animosity and hatred until the Day of Judgment. That within them there will be many fractions. And especially at the time of Rasulullah, and it was, from one point, if a person looks at it, it could have been very possible that in the initial stage, when Rasulullah came to Medina Munawwara, they're still mobilizing, and the Yahud were many. Why did it not happen that immediately they all got together and crushed the believers right away? The Yahud from here, the Mushrikun from there, everyone should have just gotten together and just crushed the believers. They all had a problem with them. So Allah Ta'ala protected the Muslim community. How? أَلْقَيْنَا بَيْنَهُمُ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ. That Allah Ta'ala separated their hearts. That they also amongst themselves couldn't agree upon anything. So we should think that if we complain that there is something like this in our community, then this is from Allah Ta'ala. This is a problem. This is something that we need to fix. كُلَّمَا أَوْقَدُوا نَارًا لِلْحَرْبِ أَطْفَأَهَا اللَّهُ. This was one of the protections that Allah Ta'ala sent for the Muslim community at the time. Because they were mukhlis. That every time they light the fire of war, Allah Ta'ala extinguishes it. Every time they get together, some animal Allah Ta'ala puts in between them, they themselves fight and nothing comes to be. وَيَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا. And they continue, the only thing they can do is skirmishes here and there, cause some problems here, hurt someone here. But as far as coming together as one massive force, Allah Ta'ala did not let that happen. وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala does not like those who cause corruption. In the next ayah, Allah Ta'ala says, what would be for them if they do believe? وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ آمَنُوا. The issue is very simple. All you have to do is believe. If the Ahl Kitab believed, وَاتَّقَوْا, they had taqwa, very simple, لَكَفَّرْنَا عَنْهُمْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ. We will expiate their sins, وَلَا دَخَلْنَاهُمْ جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ, and admit them into gardens of delight. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ, and specifically for those Yahud and Nasara at that time who were already Ahl Kitab, Allah Ta'ala gave this promise. This was more specific for those at that time. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ أَقَامُوا التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. And if they were to establish what the Torah and Injil said, وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِمْ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ, and that which was revealed before them, meaning part of that is that when the Nabi of Allah Ta'ala comes, the last Nabi comes, that you believe in him. If you were to do that, لَأَكَلُوا مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ وَمِنْ تَحْتِ أَرْجُلِهِمْ. You would have eaten from what is above you and what is under them. Meaning, Allah Ta'ala would have opened sustenance. This is an expression that you would eat from above and from below. Meaning, Allah Ta'ala would open sustenance for you. So in the dunya, in the akhirah, you would have success, and even in dunya, that's what you would have had. The recipe was very simple. Believe in the Rasul of Allah Ta'ala, adopt taqwa. Minhum ummatum muqtasida, yes, from amongst them there is a moderate nation, meaning those that did not transgress, and those that did believe in the Rasul of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. However, the reality is, وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ, that most of them, سَاءَ مَا يَعْمَلُونَ, evil was what they did. We make dua that Allah Ta'ala gives us understanding of the Quran Kareem.